Welcome to my channel. I'm a Bible girl. Hi everyone. Hey up there. First of all, today I am going to give a testimony about my deliverance from smoking marijuana. So I just wanted to preface before I get started, if that's a touchy subject for you, you probably do need to listen. But again, I understand, so I guess I'm just putting a warning out there before I get started with the testimony. So I will be talking about addiction, use of marijuana, or as I call it, greed. So before we proceed, just know that, okay? So where does this journey start for me? So as I've mentioned in other videos, I actually grew up Catholic. I attended Catholic schools from first grade until my senior year of high school, where I graduated from a Catholic high school. I actually grew up in New Jersey. I was born in Jersey City, and I was raised in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is northern New Jersey. Being that I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic schools, I wasn't, I'm trying to find the words, you guys. I was raised to believe in Jesus Christ, okay? I was raised to, go to reconciliation, confess my sins to a priest, do penance, do the rosary, pray to Mary as an intercessor. These are things that were just commonplace to me. I later on, once I got saved, realized that, Jesus is our intercessor, not Mary. And that there's a lot of incorrect doctrine that was taught to me as a child. However, I did get a love of Jesus Christ. So I know for sure if you are Catholic or you are raised Catholic, whether you're practicing or not, that does not preclude you from loving Jesus. So don't let anybody ever tell you that. And so anyway, being raised Catholic, going to Catholic schools, we had the DARE program going up. I'm a millennial, so if you're a millennial, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the DARE program. So I can't remember what the acronym stands for. I think it's drug abuse resistance education. There we go. And I just remember having those DARE police officers come and speak to us and give us knowledge and empower us with knowledge about why drugs are bad, what drugs are, what to do if you're offered drugs, all these different things, right? So my stance from a very young age was that drugs were bad. That was my stance. Then as I got older and I started to learn some things like about my father, who, we gotta roll the story back a little bit. My father, he has passed away since. He passed away back in 2018. However, my father and my mother were married when I was born, and they lived in Jersey City, and my father was a drug dealer, but this was actually unbeknownst to my mom. My mom, she grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey. Her parents both were well-to-do. She belonged to country clubs. She went on cruises. She was very much the suburban, spoiled black girl in her time. And so she knew somewhat about probably marijuana and stuff like that, but as far as like being raised in an urban atmosphere or just having this like knowledge about drug use and drug culture and drug dealers, she did not know that kind of stuff. And my father kept it from her because he also had a legitimate job where he would go and deliver lottery tickets to convenience stores. So he was able to cover up the things that he was doing on the side, which was actually where he was getting the majority of his income from. He was high up in an organization that was dealing drugs. So once I found these things out as I got older, I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea when I was real young, but, things started to be told to me as I got older, as I entered my teen and my preteen and then my teen years. And finding out that my dad had, sold drugs and stuff like that was kind of shocking to me. I felt like it kind of gave me, a little bit of street cred, At that time, I was really starting to get into rap music. I really loved, I grew up on the East Coast, so I listened to Hot 97. I used to listen to, Biggie, Craig Mack, Tupac was, I know I was from the East Coast, but I love Tupac. I had a bunch of Tupac posters in my room. Of course, my main favorite was LL Cool J. Still is to this day. I do love LL Cool J. Shout out to LL Cool J. But I really enjoyed rap music, which when I say shout out to LL Cool J, let's not get it twisted. Shout out to the person of LL Cool J. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and promote the music of any rap artist who isn't promoting Christianity, right? But yes, it was something that I really enjoyed. And the more I dove into this music, people will tell you that, oh, it's just music, it's just entertainment, it's just enjoyable to listen to. And while all those things are true, it is entertainment, it is enjoyable to listen to, even when it's nefarious things that they're talking about, like selling drugs, murdering people, raping people, all these things that get talked about in that type of music. It will seep into you. It will become a part of you. And no, not everyone who listens to certain types of music is going to emulate the lifestyle that the music promotes, okay? Just to be clear. However, as a young kid, I was impressionable. I started to think, hey, this is super cool. That my dad was a legit drug dealer, like, wow, that's super cool to me at the time. Obviously, now I know that's not true, right? So we're speaking from my young days, why I ended up becoming a pothead. Anyway, so the years progressed by. I grew up in a very predominantly, and when I say predominantly, I mean almost like 99% white suburban area of New Jersey. I went to a K through 8 school where I was literally the only black person at the school, like not just like the only black kid in my class or something like that. Out of a school of over 300 children, I was the only black person until my brother, who is 7 years younger than me, started first grade. By that time I was in 8th grade. So my experience was that I was the only black person. I always felt like an outsider. And I think that the music spoke to me so much, not just because I enjoyed the beats and, living vicariously through the lyrics, but I think a lot of it was I felt like an outsider, and I just leaned into that. Like, okay, if you guys are going to treat me different, then I'm going to be different. And, don't get it twisted. I had decent grades. I was always like fairly straight A student. The only problem I ever had was in math class. Shout out to Mrs. Sawsville at St. Elizabeth's Interparochial School. You tried so hard, but math was just never my thing, unless later on it became count money. That became my thing. But like, algebra, all that kind of stuff, just kind of not my thing. And so anyway, being that I felt so different, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, regardless of whether you grew up exactly like I did. Some people you feel outside of everybody. It was always hard for me to make friends, even though I went to the same school for, from kindergarten to 8th grade. And no one, like, there were times where I got called the N-word that I can think of or pinpoint. There were times when I was othered specifically because of my skin color, but more than that, I always felt different. Like, I know my skin color was the catalyst for that, but like my interests were different. And I was really excited too, because when I was younger, I got discovered by our choir director, who was actually a New York City big time producer of music. And he discovered that I could sing. And so I liked being other because of that. Like we used to go into New York City. He would take me on auditions for different projects. I got to sing at the Rockefeller Center on Good Morning America when I was like 11 or 10 or 11, something of that nature. And just a lot of fun experiences. I got to sing at an AIDS benefit in New York and be in the Nutcracker Suite, the Sugar Plum Fairy scene as a child for the off Broadway of the Radio City Music Hall, and I just had a lot of interesting and fun experiences. And it was because I was different. Like, I knew I was different, not just my skin color, but like my aspirations and the things that I enjoyed doing was just different than your average, K through 8 middle school, elementary school, junior high school kid from suburban New Jersey. And I leaned into it, So let's fast forward to high school. Still very fervent that drugs are bad. Even at my freshman year, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. The school is called Mary Help of Christians Academy, and it's an all-girls Catholic high school run by Salesian sisters, which I know a lot of times people conflate sisters and nuns, but nuns typically are like cloistered, they're alone, they pray all the time for people's salvation, etc. Whereas sisters tend to be more out in the community. Usually they have higher degrees. A lot of them work as, even nurses, teachers, principals, that kind of thing. And so the nuns were like awesome. There were even really young ones who were like in their 20s that I felt a connection with. And I loved how much they like seemed to just have this love for Jesus and this love for God, and that resonated with me. And so I remember coming home one day and telling my grandmother, who was like the girliest girl, she's Miss Tennessee State University 1955, like she is like when you think of like Regine from Living Single, or like I don't know, Claire Huxtable all mixed together, and like Whitley from what was that show? A Different World, and like Hillary Banks. Like if you just like rolled all those people up, and like Jackie Harry. If you just rolled all those people up, I'm talking about the lady from 227, if you guys recall that show. Anyway, roll all those people up and you get my grandmother. Like she is super bougie. And so when she heard that I wanted to be a nun, she was like, skirt, no ma'am, that is not going to happen. So the next thing I know, we're headed to move. My grandparents retire, both of them, and we moved to their townhouse that they kept as their retirement home in Nashville, Tennessee. So I went from East Coast, Biggie Smalls, LL Cool J, listening to Tupac, all that kind of stuff, and I moved to the South, the dirty South, you guys. And I even sound funny saying it, I'm sure. But yeah, that's where I got introduced to like Cash Money with, Lil Wayne, Juvenile. That's where I got introduced to No Limit, Master P, Silk the Shocker. It ain't my fault. It ain't my fault. So that was an interesting experience. It was definitely a culture shock, you guys, like mind blown. Like I just was like, whoa. And then on top of that, my grandmother, again, remember, she did not want me to become a nun. I was having this like proclivity to want to be a nun, and she was like, none of that. So she put me in a co-ed school with boys. And this time, even though it was a Catholic school still, there were some Black people there. I wasn't the only Black person. And also, rewind to my first school, the all-girls school, my freshman year, it was actually predominantly Hispanic or Latina and then Black. So there was like very few white people. So I got a mix of everything. So now I'm going from that to now I'm in this Catholic school called Father Ryan in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was a totally different experience. I'll never forget the first day of school, my sophomore year. I'm running late because I had to stop by the office and ask for help with something. I couldn't figure out where I was going. And I was like a really shy person. So just like asking somebody, like my age, like that freaked me out. I'd rather go to an adult and be like, hey, where do I need to go? Please help me. I'm here. So that's what I did. And so I ended up being late my first day to my first class because the bell had already rung and I was confused and I didn't know where I was going. And so finally I got, some direction on where I needed to go, and I'm walking up the stairs. Now keep in mind, everybody's in class already because the bell has already rung, I'm late. And I see this kid hanging from the stairwell upside down, like how you would when you were a little kid if you played on the jungle gym, like hooked with your knees hanging. And he's like, I'm a bird, I'm flying. Now keep in mind, I'm a sophomore, never been around people who are doing drugs, using drugs or anything. So I just thought like maybe he's a little off, maybe he needs a little help. I'm gonna pray for him. Years later, come to find out that the young man was addicted to drugs, specifically cocaine. And he did end up passing away prematurely at a young age as a young adult because, that drug had a hold on him, unfortunately, and it progressed to harder and worse drugs as he got older. But that was like my first experience with seeing somebody under the influence of drugs. And it was honestly, it was it was kind of scary, even though I didn't know he was on drugs at the time, but I knew something was off, and it freaked me out. So time progresses. I'm really shy. I'm not really making friends. And all of a sudden one day, this girl walks up to me and she sits behind me in my theology class. I've never seen her before. We've had theology class a few times and she's never been there. So I'm like, oh, maybe she's new too. And she just starts playing.
I brought my nail polish, so I'm gonna paint your nails today. Patty cake, make me a cake. Make me a cake as fat as my
hair. Like, she's sitting behind me in the seat behind me and she just starts playing with my hair. And I'm like, do I know you?
Stop.
Like, what the heck? And so anyway, we end up becoming best friends. And she was more of the wild child. I was more of the goody two-shoe. I was always striving to get good grades. You know, I was in AP classes. I just, you know, my grandparents instilled a really high work ethic into me. And so I wanted to please them. I was definitely a people pleaser at that time in my life, for sure. And so my goal was to please my grandparents, make them proud of me. And anyway, she and I were opposites, but we attracted. And even though we were opposites, we had a lot of similar family underlying issues going on. So I know that we definitely had a trauma bond. And, you know, that's like one of those fancy therapy terms, I'm sure, but it was true. Like, we bonded because we had very similar experiences when it came to how our family hierarchies were and how we were treated within those hierarchies. So we had a bond over that. And to this day, of course, I love her. She may feel differently because I had to end our friendship. And that's a whole nother testimony that I'll talk about another time. But yeah, I met her when I was 14, 15 maybe at the oldest. And that started a fast friendship. And I'm mentioning this because this is like the first friend that I had that was a friend that I could count on, that I loved, and that I literally felt like I would do anything for this person. Like, I had a problem at that time with people pleasing, like a huge problem. And it's none of her fault at all. It's something within me. And so I never set boundaries within our friendship. And it just caused a lot of drama later on throughout the friendship because of that. So fast forward to our senior year, I've acclimated. You know, I've been in this school since I was a sophomore. Still a shy person, but I do have my friend group, which is small. But I have her, I have another friend, and we're all fast friends. In fact, me and the other girl, her boyfriend and my boyfriend, they were actually like best friends. And so we just had a lot of fun together. I mean, we went to proms together. I don't know, we did a lot of stuff. Now, one thing was, I was still known as like this bookworm, this like super smart goody two shoes. This was what I was known as. And that was my reputation throughout high school. And I was still very much against drugs, you guys. Like, I was still very, very much against drugs. You know, my DARE education was ingrained in me from when I was, you know, going to the K-8 school in New Jersey, right? And so I had friends who were experimenting and dabbling. And if you've ever attended Catholic school, then, I mean, I can't speak for all Catholic schools, obviously, but from what I have gleaned from speaking to others, of course, who have gone to Catholic high schools in general, is that there is like an underlying drug culture at a lot of these institutions. And experimenting happens. Now, I know this probably also happens at public schools as well, so I'm not trying to just single out Catholic schools, but we do have a unique experience when you go to Catholic high school. There is a unique experience that you get there. And so anyway, the drug culture, I just disdained it. I was just like, that's not for me. I want to be successful in life, right? And so anyway, time is progressing, we're graduating, we're all set to go off to school, different schools. My best friend was gonna go to school locally in town. And then my other girlfriend was gonna go to a school in a city that was about an hour away from Nashville. And then I pledged to go to University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and that's where my drug story begins. If you're still with me, I know my backstory is long, and I'm sorry about that. But I just wanted you to understand where I'm coming from, and to know that, like, everybody who ends up getting addicted to these things does not start out that way. okay? And to stop the stigma that, you know, like, oh, you have to be raised this certain way in these certain neighborhoods with these certain kind of parents or whatever in order to fall victim to these things, because that is just simply not true. So I go off to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I go to college. And now this is a huge college with over 30,000 in undergraduate just alone. And it's a whole new world to me, whole new world. None of my friends went here. So I'm starting from zero again. I'm starting from scratch. I'm a shy person. And I eventually kind of latch onto this group of girls, and they're way more like worldly than I am, cooler than I am. And I literally just wanted to be cool. Finally, I wanted to be accepted. Finally, that's all I wanted, you know? And so I do my best to fit in with these girls now. Not to mention, I was chubby, you know, I was growing up in the early 2000s as a college student, and I was a size 12, a size 14, sometimes a 16, depending. My weight fluctuated throughout the years of college. And so I was not skinny by the standards of, you know, 2001, 2002, 2003. I was not skinny. You had to be like Paris Hilton skinny. I mean, they were calling Nicole Richie at that time fat. And if you go back and look at pictures of her, she's not fat. It's just crazy that the body standards that were pressed upon us at that age. But I'd say this to say, like, I just yearned to fit in. Like, I was wanting to do anything I could to fit in. And so one day, this guy that I ended up, you know, sleeping with, and he was a football player. He played for the University of Tennessee. So I thought I was hot stuff, because back then, and probably still now, I'm sure it hasn't changed much, but if you could bag yourself, you know, an athlete who might go to the NFL, like, you were doing it as a female at that time, okay? Now, granted, he just wanted to sleep with me. It's not like he wanted me to be his wife or anything, you guys. But my mindset back then was not good. So he smokes with me. Now, I had smoked marijuana once before with my high school boyfriend, and all it did was make me cough, and it burned my throat, and I thought it was gross, and I never did it again after that. And so now I'm in college, I'm a freshman, and this cool guy who is on the football team and starts and is so handsome to me leaves me this marijuana that he got from California when they went to go play, and he says it's really good. And so I had smoked some with him, but I think I was so nervous, I probably just didn't inhale, or like I didn't get the full effect, you know? And so anyway, the next day, me and my roommate, we decide to smoke some. So we go and we grab the necessary.
Got blunt. Got weed.
To get, you know, high. And we do it. I literally, y'all, I was crawling on the floor. I was making bird sounds, I think. I don't know. I had lost my entire mind. Let's just say that it had a crazy effect on me. So that was my introduction, my real introduction to marijuana. I already have this background of listening to rap music, loving, you know, I forgot to mention I love Nas, you know, Slick Rick, like all these drug storytellers, these street storytellers, like I love their music. It's my thing. So it's like everything slowly like converging for me to like go to the bad girl side, you know? And so I'm fully fallen into this. Like, I'm like, yes, I am a bad girl, and I'm gonna stop being a good girl, and who cares? And marijuana is not really a drug like cocaine or heroin. It's better than that. You know, there's this whole culture that surrounds like smoking weed where people act like it's not addictive and all these other things, when in reality, it is. Let me be the first to tell you, as somebody who has been delivered, it is addictive. So anyway, I start a weed habit after that. I became addicted, and I would use any little bit of money that I had to smoke. And slowly, this depression just would take a hold of me whenever I wasn't high, which caused me to want to get high more. And I mean, I went broke over it. I would overdraft my account just to buy some marijuana. I would make friends with people just because I knew I could smoke with them. I ended up joining a sorority. And my closest sorority sister at the time, she had access to a lot of green, and we would just always be smoking together. Now keep in mind, I wasn't barely even going to class because my depression had just taken a hold of me, but I was still getting A's like on all my classwork and my coursework. The only problem was you cannot, like, it's part of the syllabus that class attendance is a portion of your grade. So it didn't matter that I had all these A's on everything and I was acing all my tests and I was acing all my written assignments. I was at a 2.5 for my GPA at this time, which is the lowest GPA I had ever had. I was always at like a 3.8 or above, like close to a 4.0, even though I never achieved a 4.0, but I was always in that range. No lower than 3.6, let's say. So this was new for me. Like, I was failing out of school. Well, I wasn't failing out, but I lost my scholarship. So technically I put a huge financial burden on myself and on my family. I had to start taking out student loans. And this is all spiraling, number one, because of this addiction that I developed. Number two, because I didn't know my identity in Jesus Christ, right? And so because I didn't have a firm foundation, I'm scrambling, I'm scratching, I'm trying to reach for anything that is going to fulfill me. And now that I know that the only thing that can fulfill me is Jesus, I may look crazy to you, and I don't care, because I have been through it, y'all. I have been through it, and I have tried so many other things, which I'm going to get into another testimony soon about the witchcraft that I started doing. Another way that I was trying to fulfill myself, and it was just not fulfilling. But anyway, back to the story at hand. So my marijuana addiction just began to progress and become worse and worse. It progressed into the point that I actually just dropped out of school. I didn't even fail out of school. I literally I ran out of loan money. I ran out of the unction to do it. I was depressed. I couldn't barely get myself up out of bed on a daily basis. And the only thing that comforted me was smoking marijuana. And so I ended up going back home to my grandparents' house in Nashville, Tennessee, with my tail between my legs. And my grandmother was so angry with me. I mean, livid. I could tell she just didn't even want to look at me. And she didn't. She barely talked to me. She just berated me whenever she would talk to me. And I made sure that I got a job quickly so that I could at least say, like, hey, I'm working and I'm going to go back to school at some point. And I did. My grandfather, he was much more gentle with me. And he was like, you do need to enroll back in school, and, you need to figure things out, because you're ruining your future, And I think my grandparents had an inkling that I had started smoking weed, because obviously I was so deep into my addiction. I didn't care. I would go in the bathroom upstairs in my room, lock the door, put a towel under it, but you could still smell the weed, like, they're not stupid. They think their first rodeo, they've raised their children already, and I'm just their grandchild that they're raising. So they already know what's up. And so anyway, I get a job. I start working at Babies R Us, which actually became a place where I ended up working for almost a decade. And I did go back to school. I enrolled back in school. I started going to Tennessee State University, and I got a new boyfriend, which is the last thing I needed to do. But my boyfriend at the time, he also smoked weed, and he was also into music. So I would write music. I would sing choruses and hooks for his songs. He would rap, and we just had a great rapport, and we ended up moving in together. And of course, I ended up pregnant. And I love my daughter, and she is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because honestly, I was on a road to destruction, you guys. I was ready to destroy myself. Before all that happened, I had actually attempted suicide because I was so deep into my depression. And I remember being at the facility that they put me in, because they put me on what's called a 5150. This is when someone tries to kill themselves. The police basically, and you're an adult, the police basically put this on you so that you can't harm yourself, and then they send you somewhere, and depending on the state, it could be up to, I don't know. For me, it was 72 hours, I think, or something like that. But they put you somewhere and they get you, mental help or whatever. And I'll never forget sitting down with the therapist or the psychologist or whatever they were. And they're like, without even talking to me that long, they were like, okay, well, I'm just going to prescribe you some lithium and that'll take away everything. And I remember sitting there and being like, excuse me? I mean, yes, I was a full-blown pothead smoking on a regular, but to me, the idea of lithium and, like, just even just like doctors prescribing drugs was just like a totally foreign thing to me and something that I didn't agree with. So make it make sense, I can't, but I just had this strong unction in my spirit that I should not take the lithium. And I'm glad that I threw that prescription out and never got it filled. So I did get off of that 5150. I did, you know, that's when I decided to go back to school, and that's when I got the job at Babies R Us and stuff like that. So after I had my daughter, I was still very much addicted to weed. And I tried very hard not to smoke weed while I was pregnant with her, but I would be lying to you if I said that I didn't, because I did. Now, I did not smoke as much as I did before I got pregnant, of course, because I did have some reservations. I would research it and see, was it going to like affect her or impair her or something like that? Good news is it didn't. It could have, though, obviously. The research says that it could have, so I'm glad that it didn't. So my addiction just continues to grow, and it's fostered by the fact that I have a significant other who also smokes. And we just spend all of our extra money that we have after we pay rent and buy food, we spend it on marijuana. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she ended up getting saved. I mentioned her in the last video. Her name is Jessica. She's amazing. But at that time, we used to smoke weed together. We would smoke it all the time. And we both had kids, and we would smoke weed, play with our kids. We thought we were the best. We thought we were awesome because, oh, we're smoking weed. We're so much more relaxed. We can play with our kids and we're more fun and all this. But you just make up all the craziest, dumbest excuses for why you are being a bad parent, a bad person, etc., right? So time goes on. I don't end up marrying my daughter's dad. And it was very depressing to me because I just felt so unloved, so unwanted, and my actions reflected that. And so my weed addiction got even deeper at this time. So we separate, and I'm just grabbing at straws, you guys, as they say. I'm trying to figure out how to make it through this life. I don't want to be a single mom. You know, I want to be married. I want to give my daughter a good father figure unit. Not to say that her dad is bad, because he's a good dad. But I just wanted her to have that family feeling. You know, I wanted to be married. I wanted to be protected. I wanted to be cherished. I wanted to be loved. All these things that we want, right? I'm sure you want some of these things too if you don't have them. But I'm telling you right now that Jesus is the answer. And he has been the only answer for me, because guess what? If you fast forward some more years, I end up getting married. I find somebody to marry me, somebody that wants to marry me. And I still, after idolizing marriage, idolizing my ex-husband, like, it blew all up in my face. And that's what God allows us. He allows us to be deluded by our delusions. He allows us to be set into them, because then we come to this place where we hit this rock bottom, and the only thing there is him. Now, you can still choose not to choose him, and a lot of people don't. But when I hit my rock bottom, I chose him. I ran back to the one that I knew from the beginning, and that was Jesus. And he showed me a completely different way of life. And after I determined that I was going to divorce my husband, I had actually quit smoking weed for some years. But I went right back to that habit because it was like my little comfy security blanket, right? And so I smoked marijuana. My son was born. I didn't smoke while I was pregnant with him, but I did start smoking marijuana shortly after he was born, probably when he was almost a year old. And I was going through so much in a day. It was ridiculous. And the pain was still there. The pain of knowing that I was going to get divorced, that my marriage was falling apart. The pain of knowing that, you know, I had failed. I had failed in my marriage. I had failed to pick the right man. I was not being a good mom. I was not present emotionally for my kids. Like, I was just falling apart. I was falling apart at the seams, you guys. And I'm so glad that Jesus came in and he saved me. And that is why I will do anything to spread the gospel. I will do anything to share my personal experiences with you guys, no matter how embarrassing it is or shameful it is, because I know that at least one person, it will resonate with them. And so I just thank you guys for tuning in today to listen about my experience with marijuana. And I did get delivered. I got saved on December 24th of 2022. And I have not smoked marijuana probably since January of 2023. I am so elated, and it was like a process. And so when I came off, I started doing the vapes with the CBD oil and all that kind of stuff. But by the time April of 2023 rolled around, none of it. I wasn't doing the vapes. I wasn't smoking marijuana. I was reading my Bible. I was doing my prayer devotionals. I was praying to the Lord on a daily basis, having that relationship with him. And nothing can replace that, you guys. It's a comfort that is always available to me. He gives me the peace that surpasses all understanding. And it is my prayer that if you clicked on this video, that he will do the same thing for you. And I know he will. All you have to do is ask. So I just say, Father God, thank you so much for bringing anyone to this video who is struggling with marijuana addiction, who is struggling with addiction to any other types of drugs or alcohol. And I just pray, Lord, that you would give them the peace that surpasses all understanding, Lord. I pray that you would prosper them and that you would show them how to get on the narrow path and to follow you and to use you only for the comfort and security and not the marijuana, not the drugs, and not the alcohol. And I pray this in the mighty, mighty name of Jesus. If you like this and you want to hear more of my story, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. And that's all I have for you guys today, but I love you guys. I'm a Bible girl living in a Bible world. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.